It's 1:07. First of all, thank you very much for being with us today. So, syempre, our researchers, our viewers on our live and other social media live pages. So, meron po sila doon. And of course, to our guests, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our guests today from DICT, si Sir Tony, si Ma'am Sherry, thank you, Sir Jed. We also have from USAID Surge, Legaspi, si Sir Jed, and si Ma'am Rose from Albay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And we also have other guests na paparating, so they will be joining siguro in the middle of the webinar, and yung iba ay nandun na sila sa ating Facebook. Okay, so before we begin, I'd like to give a bit of a background about the project and the flow of this online presentation and webinar. So the lead for this initiative is Layertech Software Labs. Now, Layertech, we are a research and development company. We work primarily on information communications technology. We develop software. We develop a lot of games. We have commercial off-the-shelf solutions. We do a lot of analytics, data analytics, and we produce a lot of e-learning materials and other knowledge products. You may check our website at www.layertechlab.com. And one of the projects of Layertech, this is something that we've been working on for the past 3 years, is the Open Contracting Initiative. Actually, Open Contracting Initiative, this is supported by HIVOS. So Open Contracting is an international movement for fairer and more transparent public procurement para maganda yung competition, and it would lead to better service delivery para sa mga government offices at para na rin sa ating sa mga tao. So for this specific initiative, we look into procurement analytics. So what is procurement analytics? Basically, we use government procurement data, and we apply data mining and analysis techniques to answer various questions and come up with recommendations to improve government procurement and related activities. So in the past few years, we did business intelligence with the business sector. So we inspected procurement data para magkaroon ng business intelligence yung mga possible bidders and suppliers. We also did it for compliance management para to ensure na optimized yung procurement process ng nila using data. So lahat yon ay under sa procurement analytics na ginagawa namin. Now, especially in this time of COVID-19, na we really need data and proper planning, since, we have to minimize our movements paglalabas tayo so that hindi ganun grabe yung exposure natin. So we really have to be strategic and optimized with our decision making. Kaya talagang ina-advocate namin yung data-driven decision making. Now, this March 2020, we announced an open call for proposals on procurement analytics. So basically, the challenge is like this. You have to use data mining and analytics techniques on existing government data to come up with different insights or practice and policy recommendations for sa government natin ngayon, and we gave a special emphasis dun sa COVID-19. So lahat ng ito ay related sa COVID-19. Now, the teams, selected teams, we awarded them micro grant plus technical support na rin. And what you will be seeing today are the research findings of the researchers here in Bicol region. Now, each presentation will be around 7 to 10 minutes, and our guests will be allowed to ask questions for 5 minutes. If you have more questions, siguro if 5 minutes is not enough, please feel free to email us at learning@layertechlab.com. Paki-specify lang yung specific project and we will relay your questions to the researchers. We will monitor and ensure that your concerns, your clarifications, your questions are answered or addressed by our team on our side and the researchers. And I would just like to note that our researchers, we are so lucky kasi lahat po sila are faculty actually. So they're professionals. May MSc, even PhD. Tama ba? So we're really, really lucky to have them present the study despite the tight schedule that they were given and the difficulties brought by the COVID-19 pandemic kasi it's a challenge to go out and to conduct interviews, but despite all that, they made it work anyway, so thank you very much for that. Now, the order of the presentation will be as follows. So the first one will be, I will read the topics. So understanding resiliency of provinces and municipalities in the context of COVID-19 related tenders using an operations research methodology. Followed by procurement management of the resources used on testing COVID-19 cases in the Bicol Regional Diagnostic and Reference Laboratory. Third, the Philippine government precautionary measures through procurement of COVID-19 related items. Fourth, rapidly evaluating risks associated with able contractors in the era of a pandemic. So a multi-objective decision approach to preserve integrity of government infrastructure and construction tenders. And last but not the least, benchmarking strategies to reduce the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on education. An assessment of educational institution tenders using an operations research approach. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to pass the virtual stage, the presentation to our first presenter. Okay, please present it. Sir John?
Hello? Kita po ba?
Yes po, yes po.
Okay, so I think I can proceed already. So good afternoon, especially to the guests from the different various local governments and public agencies. So thank you po sa pag-attend nitong meeting. So ano ko lang po yung aming sa mga research po namin is under the project title, Understanding Resiliency of Provinces and Municipalities in the Context of COVID-19 related tenders using an operations research methodology. So the main composite of this is that we assess the capacity of local government units to manage COVID-19, positive locally stranded individuals in the context of procurement data. So what motivated us in doing this is that, of course, we all know the current situation of the COVID-19 in the Philippines. So as of July 19, 2020, we have about 67,456 total cases, of which 43,160 are active, 22,465 were reported to have recovered, and 1,831 died. And for Bicol region, we have 335 for the total cases, 232 for the active, 96 for the recovered, and 7 for the died. So looking into the case or focusing more on Region 5, so as of June, we have seen a recent spike from COVID-19. Due to this spike, so we would like to investigate bakit nagkaroon ng ganitong spike despite our good performance from March until the first week of June. So we look into some possible causes of this recent spike, and we have found out, based on the official press releases of Department of Health, CHD Region 5, that most of the positive cases that have been reported just recently were from COVID-19 positive cases of locally stranded individuals. Yung galing po sa mga ibang lugar na umuwi po ng rehiyon. So, yun nga po, ang appeal nga ng DOACHD is that yung mga nakasalamuhan nitong mga tao ay mag-report sa kanila kasi nga po, karamihan po ay ngayon ay na-confirm na positive po sila. So, with this in mind, we wanted really to uh, investigate kung if yung LGU ba ay kaya bang i-accommodate, i-contain, and i-treat itong mga possible na COVID-19 locally stranded individuals based on the COVID-19 related procurement activities of each LGU identified in the Region 5. So, essentially, ang questions na research questions that we want to answer here is that which LGUs are most capable of managing the influx of the COVID-19 positive LSIs, and which LGUs are least capable of managing influx of COVID-19 positive LSIs. So all of these are taking consideration that these LSIs should not be discriminated upon arrival in the respective LGUs. So to answer the objective of the research, so we first collected the LGU procurement data, we processed it, analyzed, then we interpret the results. So as for the procurement data source, it was actually from various open government data published by BLGF, PhilJEPS, and the GPPB. So the covered period is from January 1 to 2020 until May 31, 2020. And the area of focus, of course, is Region 5. So from this, since these data sets are actually not have common format, so we cleaned it, we pre-processed it so that all of these data sets will be uh, under the same data frame format for further analysis. Now, for the processing method, so based on the data we have collected, we have identified also the LGU attributes for each LGU in Region 5, and we have identified it as the ERA, the total ABC or the approved budget contracts of COVID-19 related tenders, total number of contracts, the number of active cases, approximate number of COVID-19 positive LSIs, the recovered patients, the total PPEs, the total beds, and the number of hospitals. So all of these attributes has been incorporated in an input-output model so that we can determine the capacity of the LGU to absorb or act on the arriving LSIs. So due to the inavailability of the LSI data, we largely relied on the LSI data on published, frequently published by the DOACHD Bicol press releases. So dyan po inestimate yung number ng COVID-19 positive LSIs sa mga identified na LGUs po. So going now to what we have seen for the Region 5. So we have actually, from Region 5, most cases in COVID-19 were from Legazpi, Indaraga, and Naga City. And the orange indicates from the left, figure on the left side, the active cases. And from the right side, that is the distribution. So it tells us that most reported positive cases are from the major cities in Region 5. So for the estimated LSI, based on the DOHCHD releases as of July 8, 2020, Naga City was reported to have the most, while Legazpi City was reported to be the second. So again, these two cities are the major cities in Region 5. So now, in order to interpret now what would be the meaning or the capacity of the LGU in terms of the identified attributes in accordance to the collected procurement data, so we analyze first the relevance of each critical LGUs. And based from the analysis, the number of active cases, the recovered, and the approximate number of COVID-19 positive LSIs were the one to be the most influential on the resiliency or the capacity of the LGU to absorb the LSIs. So based on this, okay naman po so far. In terms of the data, Region 5 can accommodate the LSIs. But we have to take note of these classifications that except for UWAS, we have the moderate. It was reported that UWAS has only 1 to 2 hospitals within its vicinity. It has low recovery rate, although low ang number of LSIs niya and number of active cases. But since nga po, yun nga, medyo mababa pa yung hospital sa vicinity niya, may tendency po siya maging low ang classification niya if tumaas po ang number ng LSIs niya and active COVID-19 cases. But overall po, okay naman po tayo ngayon in terms of the data sa LSIs. So, in conclusion to this, so it is suggested now that LGUs who would fall under the low classification to limit the entry of LSIs if they do not have the capacity to immediately conduct COVID-19 tests on site to these arriving individuals. Now, it's also suggested that the same classification thoroughly review the implementation of their APP because we have also found out that yung low have been reported to have higher ABCs related to COVID-19 than that of the moderate and high groups classified. So, possible po na may inefficiency ng execution of the public procurement process and awarding of the related tenders in these LGUs. Also, to further maintain the resiliency of the LGUs, it's also suggested that LGUs classified as moderate and high is to implement stringent health protocols while ensuring that arriving LSIs are not discriminated. And lastly, as a long-term solution, it is suggested that the moderate and low increase the number of hospitals located within their boundaries to at least 3. And each of these hospitals should have a total of at least 10,000 PPEs to mitigate the impact of health system shocks induced by unwarranted surges in confirmed COVID-19 cases. So we would like to acknowledge of course, the help from Layertech and HIBOS for the funding for Miss Frey and also the Layertech learning team. From our BU family, the BU RDE Research Office, our President, Dr. Mascareñas, our Vice President for Research, Development Extension, Dr. Emil Dorosan, our Director for Research, Development and Management Division, Dr. Amano, and our Dean, Dr. Amelia Gonzalez. I would also like to thank my colleagues who made this possible. So Engineer PJ, Engineer Lucero, Engineer Aspra, Engineer Marben, and Engineer Oliver Padua. So that's it. Thank you po for listening.
Thank you very much, sir, for the insightful presentation. So I would like to invite if there are questions from the guests in this Google Meet. Kasi yung mga nasa other streams, email na lang daw nila. But so far, wala naman silang major questions. So baka po may questions yung mga guest po natin dito sa Google Meet. All right. So,
okay.
yes. Okay. Pero if ever po na may mga questions kayo kasi may mga nag-message sa atin dito na via email na lang. Pero more of request for clarifications lang. So
Yes,
no questions so far. So sige, email nyo na lang po ha sa learning@layertechlab.com. So even po yung mga nanonood ngayon sa live, email nyo na lang po sa amin. Kasi medyo may lag din dun sa pag ano natin. Okay, so Thank you very much, sir, for the insightful presentation again. So, siguro po, move on na tayo sa second presentation. Please feel free po to present.
Thank you po.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me po?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, especially to our guests from various agencies. I am Jennifer Livido, and with me in the study are Professors Lani Maceda and Jocelyn Serrano, and we are all from the Bicol University College of Science. It is indeed an honor to be given this opportunity to undertake this endeavor and then to be able to share to all of you the results of our study entitled Procurement Management of the Resources Used on Testing COVID-19 Cases in the Bicol Regional Diagnostic and Reference Laboratory. Allow me to start with a brief overview or an introduction, then the statement of the objectives, followed by the methods and the materials used. Next is the presentation of results, then the findings and conclusions, and finally our recommendations. The coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new strain of coronavirus. The World Health Organization on March 11, 2020 has actually characterized COVID-19 as a pandemic due to the exponential increase in the number of cases in more than 100 countries since it has infected a large number of people worldwide, including our country and the Bicol region as well. In fact, as of March 16, 2020 rather, President Rodrigo Duterte placed the entire Philippines under a state of calamity amid the threats of posed by COVID-19. Early detection and isolation of new COVID-19 cases is critical to managing potential outbreaks, especially as our government is gradually lifting quarantine measures. This makes testing all the more vital. In response to the increasing demand for COVID-19 testing, the Department of Health opened on April 6 the Bicol Regional Diagnostic and Reference Laboratory, or BRDL, which is a COVID-19 testing, asymptomatic testing center and a DOH-run facility in Legazpi City. Its procurement management is being, or rather follows the Republic Act 9184 and GPPB Resolution number 03-2020, which is on negotiated procurement, especially for our emergency cases. How such procurements are managed will play a major role in how COVID-19 may be contained and how many lives could be saved. It is therefore in this context that the present study was conducted to analyze available data from the DOH Data Drop and the DOH Regional Office 5 to evaluate how their existing resources are being managed. The study mainly aims to determine and analyze the procurement transactions made by the Department of Health Regional Office 5 on testing COVID-19 cases in the Bicol Regional Diagnostic and Reference Laboratory. Specifically, it aims to provide statistics on the specimens processed by the Bicol Regional Diagnostic and Reference Laboratory to assess the procurement management of the resources being purchased by the DOH for use of BRDRL to facilitate the COVID-19 testing, and finally, to identify the procurement needs of BRDRL through DOH that may further enhance their operation on specimen testing. Our sources of data are basically primarily from the COVID-19 DOH data drop from this URL provided, specifically the testing aggregates data. And for our COVID-19 procurement data, we sourced them out from the Department of Health Regional Office 5. The qualitative method made use of analysis and visualization, specifically the data analytics method, which started off with data scraping and data collection from the DOH data drop testing aggregates data downloaded as of July 11, 2020, composed of 3,781 rows and 16 fields. And the COVID-19 procurement details, 109 of which were sourced out from the DOH Regional Office 5. Next comes data cleaning or data pre-processing, which entails filtering of the 95 rows of testing data, which all came from BRDRL with the dates from April 8 to July 10, 2020. Next is the filtering of COVID-19 related procurements from the OHRO5, and finally removing irrelevant or null entries. Next step was the data processing and analysis, which made use of generation of summaries, categorization, and the likes, and also visualization using different types of charts were done. Finally, validation was done by sending some emails to our domain experts, such as the DOHRO5, still waiting for feedback from them as of the moment. Okay, for our results, in terms of statistics on the specimens processed by BRDRL, we have here a graph which plots basically the daily output samples tested, which could either be positive, negative, equivocal, or invalid, and also the daily output based on the unique individuals tested. BRDRL actually started with a testing capacity of 34 samples, as shown in the graph, that's on April 8, with only one PCR machine. And also, it is evident from the graph that from somewhere from May 16 to 25, 0 samples were tested because testing for COVID-19 stopped when Typhoon Ambo damaged the exhaust duct of the roof of the facility. And according to the OHRO5, Bicol has 0 backlog in COVID-19 testing, but now with additional 2 PCR machines and automated extraction machines as donated by the LGU Legazpi and a private donor, the laboratory has actually increased its capacity of testing per day. As of now, the highest is 182 specimens tested as of that was on July 10. Hence, testing capacity could still be maximized. Now, in terms of the cumulative number of specimens tested daily, we also have this graph plotted, which basically just shows the sum of all specimens tested with validated results from the start of the laboratory operation up to the reporting date. And as of July 10, a total of 5,988 samples were tested. And this is also a graph which just shows the number of positive and negative results for the individual testing. For our second objective, which is to assess the procurement management of the resources being purchased, we took a look at the running or the remaining PCR testing kits, which would give us an idea of how many COVID tests could still be conducted as of the moment. So the graph shows that as of July 10, 18,865 tests could still be conducted. And from the graph, wala pong time na nakita kami na nag-zero siya. So the PCR testing kits, according to the script, shows that it has always been available. So it implies that there is available testing kits to conduct COVID-19 testing, with Bicol having 0 backlog in testing. Now, from the procurement data provided by the DOHRO5 office, it is evident that a bulk of the procurement was on lab supplies, followed by COVID campaign, then purchase of laboratory equipment, purchase of PPEs, and finally the conduct of COVID prevention activities. Now, most of this, or all of this rather, are already awarded procurement activities. Sample of activities for each of the identified groupings or category rather are as follows. So say for instance, for laboratory supplies, with the highest cost is on the purchase of the viral RNA extraction kit and consumables. For COVID-19 related campaigns is the placement of radio or TV infomercials, as well as various signages for COVID-19. For purchase of personal protective equipment is the procurement of surgical gowns, masks, goggles, and the likes. For purchase of laboratory equipment, it's the purchase of equipment such as LED digital dry bath or dry block heater, and the conduct of COVID-19 prevention activities involve the accommodation or quarantine for health workers and technicians from NCR, as well as antibacterial fogging or misting treatment. Now, to identify the needs of BRDRL, we took a look again at the provided procurement data of the OHRO5, and from this, we found out that 77% is already awarded, and 23% is waiting for quotation, and 0.37% has a quotation that is above the approved budget for the contract. This basically shows that most of the requested items to be purchased has already been awarded. So ano na lang po yung kulang? From those procurement needs waiting for quotation or with quotation above ABC, it is evident that again with the highest cost is that for the procurement of laboratory supplies, followed by the procurement of PPEs, and then COVID campaign, then laboratory equipment, and finally, laboratory repairs. So for conclusions and findings, it is evident that the BRDRL started with a testing capacity of 34 only with one PCR machine and increased to 182 specimens in a day with 3 PCR machines. However, with the donation with a total of 3 RT-PCR machines and automated extraction machine, 380 to 420 samples can already be tested per day. Yet 82 is the highest number of total specimens processed in a day so far. Therefore, testing could still be maximized. In conclusion, Bicol having zero backlog in testing and with available PCR testing kits could be partly attributed to the strong partnership with the LGU of Legazpi City. For Objective 2, our finding shows that 77% of the procurement activities of the OHRO5 in relation to COVID-19 is already awarded. And these are the sources being purchased by resources being purchased by the DOH for use of BRDRL to facilitate the COVID testing. PCR testing kits are also shown to be available for the conduct of COVID-19 testing. In conclusion, DOH Regional Office 5 so far had shown to have managed well their COVID-19 related procurement activities for BRDRL. Finally, for Objective 3, which is to identify the procurement needs of BRDRL, only around 23% procurement activities of the OHRO5 are not yet awarded. So in terms of the ABC, the procurement needs with highest ABC is the purchase of laboratory supplies, followed by the purchase of PPEs, COVID-19 campaign, purchase of lab equipment, and the repair of laboratories. We conclude that during an emergency like the COVID-19 crisis, procurement procedures need to be as fast as possible as it adheres to the rules. However, this still needs to be public and open. Our study recommends that other local government units may replicate the partnership of Legazpi City with DOH, that procurement data be disclosed publicly online or in the DOH ROV website, open procurement data be made available to public since it may enable fairer competition among companies, allow to detect fraud, as well as deliver better services for governments and citizens. Publishing data for each step of the contracting process is highly recommended to promote transparency and accountability. GPPB to establish an online platform to allow for an online submission and receipts of bids for various procurement modalities by all procuring entities. COVID-19 procurement strategies need to be rapidly updated to form a global, digital, and data-driven plan. That is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Jen. Again, marami kaming nare-receive na messages. So, para po sa mga nakikinig ngayon, okay lang po, that's okay, message us na lang. The researchers will be providing a feature article pala. So, in the next few days, ibibigay namin yon or executive summary para ma-share din sa mga stakeholders so that we can share it to guests as well as to other organizations interested na medyo iba-iba, may technical and may simplified. So anyway, if you have questions, okay lang i-message nyo kami or email nyo ulit kami. Email nyo kami sa learning@layertechlab.com. So for this, maraming messages pero via email na lang daw nila. May question po ba tayo sa ating guests?
Hi, Frey. Si Jen.
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Regarding the last presentation, first of all, thank you for that research. It's very enlightening in terms of showing the initiatives of the region as well as other LGUs, particularly Legazpi City, no, to improve the testing capacity of Bicol, no. Since this is a research, I noted yung uh, commendation in terms of increased capacity for testing, uh, as shown in one of the slides. But since this is research, it would be very relevant if we also correlate our findings to standards. For instance, I cannot recall yung figure ba na sinabi nang dumating na yung dalawang PCR machines ng Legazpi. Ang capacity na natin is 460 to 490 per day, if I get it correctly. Based on recollection lang kasi mabilis yung presentation. Ano yung standard? Kasi we need to understand the standard for the regions. Like ideally, at the national level, we should have hit 30,000 individuals, di ba, per day. Yun yung target dati. Declaration of the IATF, and the government admitted that it failed to meet that testing capacity. So yung implications now is, since we failed to meet that testing capacity, now you see many COVID cases being confirmed, mainly because of that testing capacity. So if you are, meron ba tayong nakuwang information from DOH? If the capacity of the country is 30,000 per day, what would be the disaggregation given the 17 regions that we have in the Philippines? That would be relevant for Bicol, because we always equate testing capacity to the proportion of the population, diba? So yun siguro magandang balikan in the research work. Tapos it may be relevant if we detail the challenges experienced by DOH yielding to low testing capacity before the machines of Legazpi City came in. Ang personal perspective ko dito, no, this is a personal perspective, not my project's perspective. If you are the regional government, you set the standards. So I got information na yung machine yata dati ng regional office is only at, yung capacity niya is only 45 samples a day ba yun, if it's true. So what were the challenges why they have that kind of testing machine when in fact compared to the machines bought or procured by Legazpi City, yung specifications niya mas mataas. Kasi 'di ba kung regional ka, no, dapat mas build ka for more samples. Yung 45 siguro mas ideal yan pang mga lower class LGU, lower income level LGU na mababa population. But if you are catering to the region, were there procurement challenges why this came about? Because you can relate this that during ECQ, Bicol had no testing capacity, diba? We need to put that into a paper so that eventually, that could influence procurement policies, especially for regional government. Kasi what if Legazpi City did not procure those 2 PCR machines? That means the regional office became reliant to the LGU, 'di ba? And you commend the city government on that. Tapos yes, it is commendable that Bicol, Legazpi City did this. What about the initiative of the province, the other LGUs? There are other component cities in Albay. Why did they not follow suit to Legazpi? No, it may not be the same value or amount, but any contribution like these machines would definitely increase the testing capacity of the region. So, uh, yun yung observation ko, no? And additional information, we can seek clarification. And another thing, I saw you pinpointed, interested ako doon eh. Ilan ba talaga yung samples na na-process natin sa Bicol? At the moment, this relates to what we're doing for Legazpi City, no? We're currently working with the city government in crafting their response and recovery plan for epidemics and pandemics using COVID-19 as our historical data or information. So maganda yung data set natin. Pero yung sinabi mo kanina, yung total samples in the region is it slightly variates from the unique count. 559 ba yun? Pero yung unique count was lower. Tingnan mo yung isang slide mo. Yung meron kang highlight yung 5,000 something figures. Tapos may unique count na 5,200 ba yun? Slightly lower siya dun sa total sample.
I think, sir, you were referring to yung may cumulative number of specimens tested daily. Kasi
Yes.
what was plotted was actually the cumulative samples tested and the unique individuals. So not
Yes.
necessarily kasi po, di ba, 1:1. There are cases wherein a specific individual would have to undergo more than once.
Oh, then
One
since this
test.
is
So
a
kaya pwedeng
research,
low.
yeah, but since this is a research, we should be explicit on that condition, on those conditions.
Yes.
Na halimbawa, kung ikaw nag-confirm ka at nag-recover ka, ipapatest kita ulit. So mas natural na mas tataas yung total, 'di ba? Kasi may mga repeat testing tayong ginawa diyan, tama ba ako? So these are just some suggestions how to further address yung some of the gaps I noticed. Sabi ko nga kay Frey, I was exchanging messages, had we seen the presentations earlier or secured the copy, mas maganda sigurong marami pang comment. But the intention is, overall maganda na yung presentation. If you are able to address these additional points I raised, that will further strengthen yung results natin. At my only request is, if possible, Frey, nandiyan ka kasi, can we use this, since we are working with Legazpi City, I appreciate yung secondary data, and this is the value of research, even for the first presenter. May we obtain copies for our use in analyzing the situation of Legazpi City? Kasi gusto ko yung mga regional gusto ko yung mga regional statistics. I know I am in one with the researchers. It's very difficult to consolidate yung COVID-19 statistics, no? So I applaud the effort of the team in doing so. But if possible, can we get copies of their presentation by end of day? I-quote naman namin sila if we will give proper recognition if we use their data or findings, ganon. But this will be very relevant for Legazpi City's response and recovery plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Jed.
Thank you, Sir Jed. Thank you po, Ma'am Jen. Actually, marami po akong nakuha ditong messages. So, kinaklarify ko lang po, lahat po ng presentation will be, we will send it to the guests. Pati yung mga institutions, yung mga government agencies na nag-message sa akin ngayon. So, yes po, isasend po namin to lahat sa inyo. The findings, pati yung researchers, in fact, again, within the week, they will be submitting a feature article para mas, kumbaga, mas madali sa iba't ibang stakeholders, yung for layman's terms, kumbaga. Kasi syempre, yung iba highly technical. So, lahat po yung i-share namin. So, don't worry. Okay, thank you, Ma'am Jen. So, okay na po ba tayo? Let's proceed po to the third presenter.
I just want
Ay, sige po.
presentation.
Sige po.
Yung presentation ba ninyo is for the whole Bicol? You are talking of the entire Bicol region? Yung study ninyo?
Ma'am Rose, actually yung study po is basically focused on BRDRL only. Kasi in the Bicol region, we have two testing centers, BMC and BRDRL. But the focus of this one is just on BRDRL. Kasi parang from what doon po sa isang natanong ko from DOH, it's like BMC has their own procurement on their own, tapos si BRDRL yung coming from DOH. So from the data that we got from DOH, we correlated it with BRDRL only.
Doon ba sa Naga, in that BMC, they have also the testing lab?
Yes po. Opo, Ma'am Rose.
Ilan ang capacity?
Hindi ko na
capacity?
we have the data, pero hindi ko po siya maalala as of now, yung testing capacity. But I think it's safe to say na mas less po yung testing capacity nila than sa BRDRL.
In your study, do you think we still need additional testing lab?
From the data,
para dito sa atin, not in the interview.
Actually, these are questions, Ma'am Rose, that I'm personally interested in finding out pa also. Kasi from raw data that we have, from data at hand, it seems that we are not actually yet maximizing the use of the laboratory. Okay. Pero I see the need na more testings be conducted. So, may missing pa po talagang data na kulang talaga sa time and sa data, just so we could be able to answer these questions that actually same po tayo ng mga tanong. So if we could have more time to dwell on the study, very interesting po talaga. So for now, from the data at hand, it seems na hindi po na ma-maximize yung testing capacity ng laboratory natin with BRDRL. As to the question of why, still has to be studied.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Rose.
Okay, thank you so much. Sige po, so shall we proceed sa next presenter?
Hey, good afternoon. Frey, can I have the floor?
Yes, of course. Yes po, ma'am.
Hindi liwan naman. Something is wrong.
Sige po. Wait lang po natin yung presentation.
For a while, please.
Baka raw po, ma'am, nakamilis. Again po, habang inaayos po natin yung presentation, so i-address ko lang po yung ibang messages na nakukuha namin. Yes po, for other LGUs, isi-share din po namin ito. So kung message lang po kayo sa amin or email sa learning@layertechlab.com, kahit po ibang LGUs or ibang regions, yes po, isi-share po namin ito. So yeah. May technical problem lang po siguro. Antayin natin po si Ma'am Lani. Ano lang po ata siya. Reconnect. Ayun, okay na siya. Ma'am Lani, okay na po.
Okay na po yung presentation.
Yes po, ma'am. Yes po.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all the guests. Thank you for the time. Let me present our study entitled the Philippine Government Precautionary Measures through Procurement of COVID-19 Related Items. So I am Lani Maceda. I am with Professor Jennifer Llovido and Professor Serrano. We are all from Bicol University College of Science. So I'll be presenting the rationale, objectives, methods and materials, results and discussions, findings and conclusions, and the next step of the study. So last January 2020, China publicly shared the genetic sequence of COVID-19. Officials confirm a case of COVID-19 in Thailand as the first recorded case outside of China. The World Health Organization releases the international community's strategic preparedness and response plan for the purpose of helping protect states with weaker health system. This strategic preparedness and response plan outlines the public health measures that the international community stands ready to provide to support all countries to prepare for and respond to COVID-19. Sadly, however, by month of March, deeply concerned by both the alarming levels of spread and severity and by the alarming levels of inaction, the World Health Organization made the assessment that COVID-19 can now be characterized as pandemic. So this is actually the report given by the Department of Health as of May 20, 2020. However, as of the moment, this statistic is moving upward or increasing. That is why the Department of Health still strongly emphasizes the importance of adherence to minimum health protocols or standards. Now with this, the various government agencies like LGUs, the government offices, barangays, provincial offices, and public schools nationwide made its preparation by procuring necessary items during the first quarter of the year. And their procurements, however, are mandated to follow the revised IRR pursuant to Section 75 of Republic Act number 9184 and Resolution 03/2009 as approved by the GPPB. The study mainly aims to determine and analyze the procurement transactions made by the Philippine government as response measures during the first quarter of the COVID-19 pandemic occurrence in the country. So these are the following specific objectives: to identify the items procured during the first quarter by the government agencies as response measures to COVID-19 pandemic. Next is to evaluate the transaction details of the procured items. And the last one is to determine the response measures initiated by the government agencies as precautionary to the spread of COVID-19. So the sources of data came from the field chefs, that is from January to March 2020, from their site. And then this employs both the qualitative and quantitative method, which is on analysis and visualization, and also the frequency count. Now, how do we go through with this study? The first one is data scraping. So we get the bids notice and award details from January to March 2020. So we collected 231,784 procurement data. And this includes the regions 1 to 15, including the NCR. These are actually well represented by various government agencies, including the 73 LGUs, 22 public offices, 9 provincial offices, 8 barangays, and 5 public schools. Now, after collecting the data, we cleaned. So how do we go through about it? We filtered the COVID-related data based on its notice title, item name, and description using the keyword search COVID and COVID-19. So based from this, we come up actually with 245 data sets. And then we selected the necessary fields such as organization name, the business category, the funding source and instrument, notice type, procurement mode, area of delivery, and the like, since the data are all in a machine readable format. After data cleaning, we do the data processing. The organization names were grouped according to its organization type because they are all varied. And also even the location. We actually grouped it together according to its region. According to its location. Then we do the stemming because there are because of the pre and post fix on item description and business category. We sorted also the approved budget according to data ranges so that it will be easier for us to do the analysis. Then we made use of the count value to analyze each unique instances. After doing all this data processing, we do the analysis and iteration. The analysis was made through visualization by curating data into a form that will be easier to understand. Then the inferences on the results was made by reviewing the GPPB issuances. And this is actually the opportunity for us to do the consultation with the public. Then these are now the results. As to the items procured along organization type and business category, we will notice that we have the LGU, we have the offices or the public offices, barangay, provincial office, and schools. Most of them, LGU offices, provincial offices, and schools, these are actually on the same color. They actually procure, the top most procured items are medical supplies and laboratory instruments. However, with the barangay, the most procured item is general merchandise. This is upon checking or upon reviewing the details on the data sets gathered. This actually consists of the other supplies like printing materials because they actually conducted IEC or Information and Education Campaign against COVID. For the another one is the procured items business category and its area of delivery. So what we did with all the based on the area of delivery, we actually summarized those the procurements. So this shows that NCR purchased more on general merchandise. Region 10 is on medical supplies. Region 11 is fixtures. And as per checking, the fixtures includes the Venetian blinds for the quarantine area or facility. The Region 12 is more on medical supplies and lab. The Region 13 is on catering services because they actually give some food to the frontliners and also during the conduct of their trainings. Then Region 15 and the other regions mostly are on medical supplies and laboratory instrument. For Region 7, the same thing, but Region 8, it's more on grocery items because as per purpose written there, even during the first quarter of the year, there were displaced family and individuals. And then Region 9, 1, and then others, are basically more on medical supplies and laboratories instrument. So that's why with Region 7 or Central Visayas, particularly Cebu City, had made the furthermost preparation by procuring medical supplies and laboratory instrument and drug and medicines. The Region 1 or Ilocos had a big count of purchases, however, on medical supplies and laboratory instrument, and so with other item categories. The next is Region 8 or the Eastern Visayas with medical supplies and laboratory equipment, and NCR had general merchandise. That's why we actually could notice that on the first quarter of the year, the Central Visayas, I think, had a small number, but although right now, they actually encountered, they are one of the area which is increasing right now. This may probably be because of some other factor. Now, for the next objective, which is on the transaction details, the funding source and instrument and procurement mode, majority of the funding source and instrument of the procured item came from the government of the Philippines. Because there, as stated there, there are data which is stated as others. While for the budget for the contract, this was approved by the Sanggunian, and followed by the General Appropriation Act or the GAA. And most of the procurement mode is negotiated procurement, small value procurement, both on the two modes, and then this was actually followed by public bidding. Then for the top 10 business category, along with the approved budget, let me give the summary of this figure. For the barangays, most of the procured item is general merchandise amounting to 500,000 to 1 M. For the LGUs, they procured medical supplies and laboratory instruments amounting to 400,000 to 1.5 M. And this is followed by the grocery items with 51,000 to 100,000. The various government offices procured medical supplies and laboratory equipment ranging from 51,000 to 4 million. And then followed also by general merchandise with 51,000 to 300,000. The provincial offices also procured medical supplies and laboratory instruments amounting to 250,000 to each 8 million, while the schools procured also medical supplies and laboratory instruments amounting to 51,000 to 400,000. Now, what are the reason, the award type made, and then the reason for the award? Most of the award notice granted was on negotiated procurement on emergency cases. The lowest calculated and responsive bidder and emergency cases were most of the reasons in giving the award to the concerned suppliers. Then we also have the other awards as stated or as shown in the figure. So based on those data, since there is a purpose also being written there on the purpose of procurement, what are the response measures initiated? If we will be summing it up, we will notice that mostly of the measures being made is the procurement of medical supplies for preparedness and response. And this was followed by the relief goods for displaced families and individuals, and followed by the conduct of sanitation. Now, these are presented according to its region. So for region 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. And then here from regions 5 to 9, and then 10 to 15. So the figure I had given before are actually the summary of the measures initiated by those various regions. So what is the findings? For the first one, the LGU's offices, provincial offices, and schools similarly had medical supplies and laboratory instruments as their top procured items during the first quarter of 2020 as prevention and response for COVID-19, followed by general merchandise, especially those at the barangay levels. We concluded that the LGUs had shown to have the furthermost preparation for the pandemic during the first quarter of 2020 by procuring numbers of medical supplies and laboratory equipment. For the next one, Region 7 or Central Visayas, particularly Cebu City, had the most number of procured items of medical supplies and laboratory instruments. and drugs and medicines during the first quarter of 2020. As to area of delivery, Region 1 or Ilocos had the biggest count of purchases, followed by Region 8 of Eastern Samar or Eastern Visayas and NCR. Majority of the funding source and instrument of the procured items came from the government of the Philippines, with the budget for the contract of 51,000 to 4 million as approved by the Sanggunian, followed by those from GAA. Most of the procurement mode is on negotiated procurement, small value procurement, followed by those posted from public bidding. So we concluded that the procurement processes made adheres to the rules of negotiated procurement by simplifying its process as stipulated in the GPPB Resolution number 03/2020. While for the last one, for most of the precautionary measure conducted were the availability of medical supplies for the preparedness and response, distribution of relief goods for the displaced families and individuals, the conduct of sanitation, and taking the initiative and disseminating information through an information drive related to COVID-19 preventive measures. That's why a number of precautionary measures were actually initiated by the various government agencies in the Philippines, although it still had a widespread nationwide and even worldwide. Now, what's the next step for this? There should be a procurement of materials to be used for sanitation and protocol setup as preventive measures for the spread of COVID-19, especially to quarantine areas and other public areas, mostly visited by community members. It is also suggested for the GPPB to establish an online platform to allow for an online or electronic submission and receipt of bids for procurement modalities. Then the last one is there should be a strict implementation and proper coordination with concerned agencies of the protocols, especially to those with PUMs, PUIs, and LSI. So this actually ends my presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Lani, for the presentation. Again, inuulit ko po yung mga bagong LGUs na nagme-message. So yes po, just let us know, isi-send po namin sa inyo lahat ng materials. So meron po bang question dito po yung guests natin within the Google Meet? Okay, wala po. Sige po. Pero Ma'am Lani, maraming messages.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Galing po sa ibang LGUs. Pero sige po, message lang po kayo sa amin, learning@layertechlab.com. Tapos kami na lang po yung magre-relay din. I-update po namin kayo sa mga whatever na mga i-release po namin regarding dito sa research. Okay, so sige po, punta na po siguro tayo sa next presentation. So next is rapidly evaluating risks associated with able contractors in the era of a pandemic. So yes.
Good afternoon. I'll be sharing now my PowerPoint.
Sige po, sir.
Okay, so good afternoon everyone. So I would like to verify first po if okay naman po yung presentation ko, nakikita?
Yes, sir. Okay naman po.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon po everyone sa ating mga guests dito sa Google Meet as well as sa mga nanonood sa ating Facebook Live. So our project title po is Rapidly Evaluating Risks Associated with Able Contractors in the Era of a Pandemic, a multi-objective decision approach to preserve integrity of government infrastructure and construction tenders. So we call it How to React. Later on, I will be explaining what React is. And I am the team that composed that had taken this endeavor. With me is Engineer Barajas, Engineer Aspra, Engineer Lucero, Engineer Padua, and Engineer Ramos, all from Bicol University. So let me proceed with my presentation. So as all of us know, we are now at the center of a pandemic. So currently, we have 65,304 cases as of July 18. And in the context of Bicol region, we are now 319 cases as of July 18. So definitely, we the not only the government but all of us, including our personal lives, are forced to adapt in this new normal and new situation that we have, including the processes of our government. That's why in this particular study, that is the focus of it. We will be looking into the procurement, specifically into the characteristics of contractors, given that we are now in the center of a pandemic. So since the beginning of this pandemic, the COVID-19, the government instituted a program as their emergency response to it called the Philippines COVID-19 Emergency Response Project, funded by the World Bank. So one component of that particular funding is what we call the Strengthening Emergency COVID-19 Healthcare Response, with a total budget of 82,500,000 US dollars. So the aim of this component is to strengthen essential healthcare service delivery system to be able to respond to a surge in demand as a result of anticipating rise in the number of COVID-19. We look into a specific subcomponent of the said component because under that component, our contractors plays the vital role. We call it the subcomponent 1.3, which is the enhancing or isolation quarantine facilities, or the enhancement of isolation or quarantine facilities, with a total budget of around 23 million US dollars. So under this subcomponent, the establishment, construction, retrofitting, refurbishment of quarantine facilities falls into. So this is a difficult scenario for our government, given that our procurement process is kind of rigid, given the law, enabling law for this for our procurement process is established already, and in my opinion it's quite strict and rigid, and it should be, because we are talking about handling the money of the people. So but the question is, how did the government responded, given that there should be a surge construction of these facilities that are needed for the government to effectively respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the GPPB releases several resolutions addressing specifically that concern. In this particular resolutions, I would just like to summarize this. The main heart of this resolution is to hasten the procurement process of the construction of emergency facilities, specifically to address the COVID-19 pandemic. The highlight of, or the major changes in the issuance of GPPB are the following. No? First is it allows the procurement entity, the head of the procuring entity, the hope, to directly negotiate with a legally, technically, and financially capable bidder. Another thing is that it allows the hope to delegate the awarding of contract under negotiated procurement, provided that it will fall under emergency cases. And another thing is that it allows the hope or the procuring entity to accept expired business or mayor's permit, provided that official receipt of renewal is provided. Another thing is that unauthorized omnibus sworn statement subject to compliance therewith after the award of contract is also allowed. It's also allowed in the new issuance of GPPB to increase the allowable amount of advance payment from 15% to 30%. And also, the last one is to accept an unauthorized performance securing declaration. All of these are done so that the procurement process will be hastened, as well as in order for them to, for the government or for the agents to effectively respond to the need under the this pandemic. No, these things are good, given that this is an emergency case. However, this poses risk on the part not only of the procuring entity but the government as a whole. So what we would like to come up with in this particular project is to be able to evaluate rapidly, no, to rapidly evaluate and assess the contractor traits, because even if though some provisions of the procurement law has been relaxed a little bit, it's important that it is not abused. In order for us to ensure that those things are not abused, we should have a parameter to characterize our participating contractor in all of our procurement. So let me proceed in the next slide. So in this particular project, we would like to characterize our contractors whether they pose least risk or the most risk. So in this study, we categorize them under the low risk, medium risk, and high risk contractors. So the process in the conduct of this research is, number one, we collected the CPES data, or what we call the Contractors Performance Evaluation Summary from GPPB. And then after that, we analyze and we clean and process the data, and then we analyze that, and then we interpreted the implication of the results. So this is the data. This is uh, sample data that we have. We got it from the GPPB, and then the period that we considered is January 1, 2016 to January 30, 2019. We limited our area of focus to region 5. So this falls under the 29th and 28th CPES report from GPPB website. So we once the data is available, we cleaned it and we process it. So how did we process it? We use the entropy approach in analyzing the data that we've got from GPPB. So we've identified 9 contractor traits that we think are essential to look into in order for us to characterize a specific contractor. So that is shown in your screen, the C1 to C9. C1 is the average contract duration, the average contract amount, average negative slippage, lock-in average CPES or ongoing projects, lock-in average CPES rating for completed projects, number of ongoing projects, number of completed projects, and then approximate net financial contracting capacity, or the NFCC, and finally the total number of projects. You might notice that C9 is simply the combination of C6 and C7. We specifically included that in order for our mathematical model to stand. So shown in the right part of your screen is the mathematical formula for the entropy approach that we use in this study. So the results, the data that we had is that most of our contractors got the very satisfactory rating for CPES. And the graph in your screen shows that 52% of the contracts or the projects in the database is still an ongoing project, and 48% are completed projects. So this is now the results. No, we can see that in the graph that about 190 contractors are well within the negative slippage threshold limit of 15%. So our law allows 15% negative slippage, and the good news is that 198 contractors of under still fall within that particular threshold limit. So only those within 12 to 24% is 13, 24 to 30 is 15, 11, and so on and so forth. Another thing that we can see in the data is that about 193 contractors have an approximate NFCC ranging from 1 to 47 million. And about 174 contractors have engaged in a contracts amounting to 1 to 39 million. We can see in this particular graph or in this particular slides that most of the contractors in Bicol region can engage in government contracting as long as it is within 1 to 47 million. So this is a very good input for our policymakers as well as those who are preparing their project proposals to consider that most of our contractors locally available in Bicol region can accommodate a project that is within 1 to 47 million. So when we have processed the data, we have seen that there are three factors that greatly affected the characteristic or the trait of a contractor. Those are, the first is the C3, which is the average negative slippage, amounting to 44.30% of effect in our total formula. And then our second in rank is the approximate NFCC, and finally the third is the average contract amount. What this shows us is that the performance of a contractor, specifically in these areas, the average negative slippage, the approximate NFCC, and the average contract amount, greatly characterize their performance in dealing with our contracts in the government. So this is the formula that we have derived. Trait collated in accordance to the collected 28 and 29 CPES data are directly proportional to the risk category. This is very good actually, because we can see that our model stands because they are in coherence with our prediction that they are directly proportional to one another, except for C9, which you will see in this graph, their future performance. Actually, if they have more projects, I think they are more experienced, so that's a good thing. I would like to highlight table number 2, the risk category equivalent. When under the equivalent numerical score, the lower limit for low is from 0 to 59.3, the moderate from 59.3 to 78.3, and the high is from 78.3 or greater. Okay, let me continue. This is the average values in range of low, moderate, and high risk contractors. We will look into the average negative slippage. You will see that the low is 7.5%, well within the 15% threshold. And then the high is 36.8%, and the moderate is 24.9%. We will see here that out of the 242 contractors evaluated, a good number, which is 83.06% or 201 of them, fall under the low risk category. And then only 16 fall under moderate risk, and high risk is 16. So here are the conclusions. A government procurement entity suggested to maintain a database of contractors who were previously awarded with construction and infrastructure contracts and adopt the format of the published CPES report. Also, to fast track the processing of the negotiated procurement under emergency cases and ensure takers of such bids, it is also suggested to limit the ABC of posted construction infrastructure tenders to 47 million. This is so because most of our contractors in Bicol region can handle such amount of ABC. Also, it is also recommended that scrutiny in accordance to GPPB guidelines be further exercised to those contractors that will be classified under moderate and high risk. Why is that? Because we can see in previous table that those who fall under moderate and high risk and has an average of more than 15% negative slippage. And finally, it is suggested that a supplemental assessment system similar to the developed RRI system be adopted by a government procuring entity. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this has added value to you and to your organization. We would like to thank Layertech, Hibos, and Manfrey, as well as the Layertech Learning Team PH for the support and for helping us all throughout the study. We'd like also to acknowledge and thank the Bicol University family, the Research Development Extension Office, the Office of the President, the Office of the Vice President, and Office of the Dean of the College of Engineering. So thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ulitin ko ha, yung mga may nag-question, ay may nagtatanong kasi again. So this the presentations, they're public. So hindi lang po siya for government or for organization. So if you're interested, tulad po ng mga contractors na nagme-message, email nyo lang po ulit kami, learning@layertechlab.com, and we will furnish you. So meron po bang question from the guests? So walang Ayun, pero meron po tayo sir na mga messages pero ito more of from private sector. Medyo gusto daw nila email na lang instead of dito sa live. But most of the clarifications or questions is more of what does it mean naman sa side ng contractors? Like, ano yung mga, yan. So parang in a very general sense, what does your findings mean sa side nila as contractors and how, kumbaga ano yung mga insights na pwede nilang makuha to ensure na tumaas naman din yung ratings nila. So would you like to say something about that, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. Actually, that is a very good concern in the side of the public sector. So one thing that we can do is that we can still present and show them the data and even the result of our studies so that we can specifically pinpoint what are the areas that they really need to improve. So again, the data is still limited given our COVID-19 situation, but we are hoping as a team that we can expand on this so that we can incorporate more data available in the future so that we can fine tune the mathematical model and hopefully share it with those who are players in the procurement, both for the part of contractors and those who are procuring entity. Thank you, Ma'am Frey.
Okay, thank you, sir. So kung wala na pong question from the guests, siguro po proceed na tayo sa ating last presenter. So finally, we have benchmarking strategies that reduce the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on education. So maganda po to, lalo na po dun sa mga nanonood sa atin na interested dun sa mga e-learning, ganyan. So yon, an assessment of educational institution tenders using an operations research approach. So sir, siguro po turn over ko na yung floor sa inyo.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Frey. Good afternoon, everyone. Confirm ko lang po if naririnig po ako. Clear po ba yung audio?
Yes po, sir. Clear po yung audio.
Okay, and then yung, wait lang. Present na. How about yung PowerPoint po?
Yes po. Okay po yung PowerPoint.
Okay, so let me start my presentation. So good afternoon, everyone. So this afternoon, I'm going to be presenting our research project entitled Benchmarking Strategies that Reduce the Impact of COVID-19 Pandemic on Education, an assessment of educational institution tenders using an operations research approach. So the proponents for this research study is yours truly, Arpon Lucero Jr. And with me are engineers Barajas, Aspra, Hialone, Padua, and Engineer Ramo. Okay, so as you may have noticed in the recent years, the Bicol region has produced top-notch graduate under various courses. So to name a few, we have the accountancy, we have nursing, we also have top-notchers in engineering and sciences, and also in social work and education. And because of this, it has affected the number of enrollees of each SUCs in the region. In fact, in the study conducted by Naperi and Susan Janner, and this is in July of 2018, 77,000 to 91,000 students are estimated to enroll in the 9 SUCs located in various provinces of the region, and is expected to double due to the implementation of the universal access to quality education, in which, syempre, the government pays for their tuition fees. However, just recently, the COVID-19 crisis has crippled the delivery of education in the Philippines. Due to this worsening situation, just this March of 2020, all classes and all levels were suspended and the government ordered a lockdown, yung ECQ po natin, to the entire island of Luzon in order to control the spread of the virus. And after 2 to 3 months, basic services have been allowed to operate in skeletal setting. However, classes or face-to-face classes in schools still remained suspended, which practically, ruined the usual implementation of school calendar. So now, in order to continue education safely, it is suggested by many authorities in higher education that face-to-face classes be shifted to online modes of learning. No? However, this move of virtual classes by SUCs has been resisted by majority of students. As this distance mode of learning, quote unquote, according to them, are only intended for the privileged. This statement was actually confirmed by one report revealing that only 17% of Filipino students have internet access. Only 3.4 of those students have own cell phones that can connect to the internet, and only 5 of Filipino students have stable internet connectivity. So, for these reasons, we can safely say that shifting to online mode of learning is somewhat an impossible, no, not impossible, but maybe unfeasible approach to continue the education safely. You know? Okay, so but despite this pandemic, a number of schools in the Philippines were still able to successfully transition into online modes of learning. These schools are able to hold online classes. Also reported significant number of students enrolling in their online courses, but this capability was not achieved overnight by those SUCs. So benchmarking on their procurement strategies could be could be beneficial to SUCs in Bicol region, currently in the process of shifting to online modes of learning. So overall, the objective of this research work is simply to benchmark the procurement behavior of these SUCs and translate this behavior into data-driven recommendations, which could be adopted by SUCs in Bicol region. And of course, to come up with solutions for this, um, we have here two summarized research questions that needs to be answered. Number one is how ready are the students for online modes of learning? And number two, are SUC capable to conduct online learning or online modes of learning? Okay. So for the methodology of this current research study, we have 4 steps in order for us to answer the recently introduced research question. First, that is the collection of bid data. Second, the cleansing of the data and processing. Third is the data analysis. And of course, last is the interpretation of the results. For the data collection, the primary source of procurement data here are the most recent PhilJEPS data set. PhilJEPS, the Philippine Electronic Procurement System, and GPPB, or the Government Procurement Policy Board data. This is from January of 2016 to May of 2020. No? So the area of focus is only in Region 5. And in order to collect the feedback of students on the internet connectivity provided by the respective institutions, um, an online survey was sent to our colleagues working in all 9 SUCs in the region. So flash in your screen is the sample of questionnaire survey. So ayan. Okay. So for the data processing method, it is important to establish the definition of the term resiliency of education system. And the definition of a resilient education system was derived from 3 recommendations cited in this study. And based from these recommendations, a mathematical model defining resiliency of education system was formulated and will be then used to calculate the efficiency scores of each SUC. So to explain this simpler, meron po tayong mga identified 25,000 and below po only own a cellular phone and can only access the internet through cellular data. And why is this an important finding? Well, as approved or reported by the respondents, the cost of using cellular data for school activities prior to COVID-19 pandemic is already at least 1,000 pesos. No? And surely, a sudden shift to distance learning or yung tinatawag natin na online learning, no, will significantly increase that cost. So in short, it is implied that the planned shift of online modes of learning this coming semester would put most of the students, lalo na po yung less than 25,000 ang household income, at a very huge disadvantage. Okay, so here, in the next slide, based on the responses of the students, internet connectivity within SUC main campuses were provided, no? Sa left po na figure, but not really in the extension campuses, as what can be seen in the right, no? Right figure. It is also worth mentioning that significant number of students reported both main and extension campuses do not provide internet connectivity. So yan po yung bar at the uppermost portion of the two figures. So it's stated there, no internet provided. Ano? Next slide is for the average internet speeds provided by the SUCs. Around 80% of the respondents reported a speed of 5 Mbps and below. And the majority of that 80% are experiencing an average internet speed, both download and upload, of 1 Mbps. So napaka-bagal po. Hindi po kaya sa mga video streaming. And this result were confirmed by looking at the overall feedback given by the respondents towards internet connectivity. So as you can see in the figure A, B, C, 117, 120, and 118 respondents out of the total 242 give a score of 1. And 1 is the lowest in the Likert scale. So ibig po sabihin, they are completely dissatisfied with the internet connectivity in their respective schools. Okay po. So here, based on the calculated efficiency scores, majority of SUCs in Bicol region are actually fully capable for online transition. However, this result is very surprising since most of the SUCs were given a lowest score of 1 in the Likert scale by the respondents. Okay, so let us now move on to the crucial SUC attributes. So this study ranked all identified SUC attributes using the mathematical model that was introduced earlier. Yung mathematical model po is called input and output model, no, for the information of everyone. Based on the overall weight, it was found out that the total approved budget, or the one that is coded I2, and the number of IT-related tenders, the one that coded I1, are the most important attribute or criterion in determining the capacity of SUC to effectively transition into online modes of learning. So here, we have looked closely into the total approved budget contract, or ABC, as the most crucial attribute. Yung first po kanina sa previous slide, total approved budget contract. We have looked into it closely. And again, looking at the sum of ABCs in figure 6D, dito po sa lower right, it says there cumulative sum of ABC. It is very surprising to see that those identified as partially capable SUCs, or yung orange line po, have a higher total approved budget contract than those identified as fully capable SUCs. Yun naman po yung blue line. And this is for the year 2016 and 2020. So, meaning meron po problema somewhere. And These are the possible reasons for low Likert scale ratings. So number one, only 1.49 million were spent for the procurement of computer servers. That is from January of 2016 to May of 2020. Second, no procurement for server expansion for the first quarter of 2020. And also, only 11.52 million were spent for securing internet connectivity and no contract awarded for expansion of internet bandwidth. And also, 2.58 million were spent on improving library capacity and no awarded contracts found in the acquisition of LMS or Learning Management System and subscription to online databases. And no contracts for software purchases. And lastly, the major or majority of the contracts found were for information technology parts and accessories and peripherals. So here, procurement of USBs, hard drives, printers are among the commonly awarded contracts under this item. So next slide, let us now see the best practice for IT. This is based on the procurement data of the fully capable SUCs. So number one, at least 7.56 million must be allocated for procurement of computer servers. Second, at least 3 million must be allocated for additional computer servers. 41 million must be allocated to increase internet bandwidth and coverage. Next is 14 million must be allocated for securing a reliable backup internet connectivity. And last two is 120 or 120.91 million must be allocated for the acquisition of LMS and online subscription to databases. As compared to the partially capable, sa kanila, I believe, ano lang, ilang million ba yon? 11, or no, 2.58 as compared to 14 or 120.91 million. No? And the last is 54.72 million must be allocated to purchase licensed softwares. So there you go. So these are the best practices of a fully capable SUC. So for the conclusions and recommendations, we have 5 in total. So let me read the slide. The students were generally reported to rely on cellular phones and cellular data. Hence, this research strongly recommend that synchronous and asynchronous learning activities, low data consumption must be implemented. And a budget allocation of 41.19 must be observed to establish a robust IT infrastructure that is fully capable of implementing online modes of learning. And third, since no significant investment necessary for the conduct of online modes of learning were observed, it is strongly recommended that SUC in the region include in their annual procurement plan or AAP or APP, the acquisition of online learning management and library management systems, and also subscription to online databases. Second to the last is the parallel to what has been observed for the procurement and learning and library management system and subscription to online electronic basis. It is also strongly recommended that SUC in Bicol region prioritize procurement of software for research and instructional purposes. And lastly, SUCs in the region are financially capable of the proposed online transition. However, a realignment of their appropriations, especially or specifically for improving their present IT infrastructure, is strongly recommended. So I believe that's the end of my presentation. So I would like to acknowledge Layertech and Hivos. Thank you for financially supporting this research project, and of course to Layertech Learning Team PH and to Ms. Frey Sangil. Thank you very much. And of course to the Bicol University family, to our president, Sir Mascareñas, to our dean, Ma'am Gonzalez, and to the Bicol University Research Development and Extension Office, Ma'am Ami Dorosan and Sir Luis Amano. Thank you so much for the support. So that would be all, I think. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, sir. Sa presentation, very timely talaga at very interesting, lalo na po ngayon yung ating challenges sa learning, sa online learning. Meron po ba kayo yung questions from the guests? Ayun, sir, yung mga question po natin dito, again, so via messages na lang, via email. So kung may mga questions po kayo, please feel free to message us at learning@layertech.com. Guests po ba? May question po ba tayo? Okay. So kung wala, actually meron na messages pero via email na lang daw. Anyway, kung gusto nyo po, yung mga general questions or pwede po kaming gumawa ng FAQ siguro. Tapos, depende sa clarifications and yung suggestions, yung sagot po ng ating mga partner researchers, pwede naman po namin i-post sa Facebook. So anyway, there we go. So ako naman. So the researchers will be again, so anuhin natin ha. The researchers will be providing the feature article and we will be sharing the presentations as well to the guests and to our public pages. So if you want to look at it and if you have questions, clarifications, pag dinadigest yung mga babasahin natin, i-message nyo lang po kami. You can PM us through Facebook or email. We prefer email actually para may documentation talaga. But anyway, please feel free. Hindi lang po siya for government agencies or for institutions, kahit individuals, research teams. So please feel free, CSOs, message nyo lang po kami. So anyway, thank you so much to the presenters. So indeed, at times like these, we really have to work together. Ano po, 'di ba? Yung science and technology, yung research, it's extremely important, especially to ensure that the steps that we are making, the decisions that we make, they're efficient, inclusive, and effective. Para hindi sayang sa resources, 'di ba? Lalo na po ngayon na konting-konti ang resources natin and we have to be very strategic. And we saw how the power of data can really help us in decision making, yung decision support systems natin, 'di ba? And it is very important that we have up-to-date, clean, open data available for researchers, scientists to use. So marami pong magagaling, volunteers, mga intellectuals, mga may skills sa ating bansa, sa Philippines. So maganda po sana kung meron po silang access sa data. So isa po yun sa mga ina-advocate po ng Layertech. And that's why we work with HIVOS para maka-provide po kami ng clean data. So to start, if you want procurement data na clean, you can check out our website, ocdex.tech. So yeah, yan nga po. Ito pala, I have two good quotes here. Sabi, di ba po nila, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. But at the same time, without an opinion, or context for that matter, you're just another person with data. So in Layertech and our partners, we believe that this two has to go hand in hand. Kaya po nag-i-invite kami po lagi ng iba't ibang stakeholders so that we can discuss like this online webinar that we're doing. And we will also be releasing, in the next few months, a book for the past years. I think it's 3 years that we've been working with HIVOS on open contracting and procurement analytics. We will be releasing a procurement analytics handbook And this is for free. Wala po siyang bayad. May offline version, may handout kami, and then meron ding online. So you can check that out. You can follow our web pages kung kailan namin to i-release. But yeah, in the next few months. So nandito po lahat na methodologies and yung experiences din po namin and learnings and yung mga nabasa, yung mga pinersent po ngayon, lahat po yan ay ilalagay po namin dito sa handbook. And of course, find us online. So we have Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Tumblr, Google Play, apps, Amazon. And please do check our procurement portal, ocdex.tech. Kasi lahat po na procurement analytics related data, analytic systems and everything will be published dito sa website na ito. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much. That concludes our presentation. Thank you very much to our partner researchers for sharing your expertise and findings, and to our guests. Salamat po. Thank you very much po for attending. Yung mga nandito po sa Google Meet and yung mga nanonood po sa live at yung mga nagme-message sa Facebook Premiere. So thank you po. Lahat po to, the recordings will be uploaded in our social media pages, yung presentations po nila and everything. So please do follow us. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and OCDEX portals, learning resources, and as well as our website, www.layertechlab.com, or kung nahihilo po kayo, just PM us on Facebook, and we have our team to guide you. Or email us at learning@layertechlab.com for those who are interested in this topic. And please, yun pa po for our future collaborations and opportunities, watch out lang po sa aming mga announcements. So that's it. That concludes our webinar. Maraming salamat po, and more than kailangan po talaga natin ngayon. We really need to work together, especially yung mga scientists, mga researchers, napakalaking tulong po niyan. And thank you din po sa government, sa LGU, na ating mga partners for being receptive, agencies dito sa ating mga, ifo-forward po namin to sa inyo, lalo na po yung mga LGUs na nag-signify via messenger ng kanilang interest. Ifo-forward po namin ito, and we can maybe discuss in this platform or in other platforms na convenient para magamit po talaga natin yung power ng data, especially sa panahon ng COVID. So that's it. Thank you very much, everyone, and hope to see you again in our future webinars. Thank you. Bye.